Breaking news. Vaccines cause cancer according to the FDA. You'd have to see it for yourself to believe it, ladies and gentlemen, but on the FDA's website, under the report titled Investigating Viruses and Cells Used to Make Vaccines and the Threat Posed by Transmission of Viruses to Human, we learn that in fact it's remarkable. You're going to want to write this date down. The emergence of pathogenic virus infections like influenza and HIV have created an urgent need for new vaccines. Its problem reaction solution, it's starting real nice. Let's see if we can blow this up for you a little bit so that you can read along. Virus-based vaccines are made in living cells. Some manufacturers are investigating the use of new cell lines to make vaccines. The continual growth of cell lines ensures that there is a consistent supply of the same cells that can yield high quantities of the vaccine. Now, this is where it gets interesting. In some cell lines, they say, in some cell lines that are used, they might be tumor-igenic. That is, they form tumors when injected into rodents. Hey, where's this on the inserts? Where's this in the evening news reports, ladies and gentlemen? Some of these tumor-forming cell lines may contain cancer-causing viruses that are not actively reproducing. Okay. So where is this? Is this InfoWars? Is this some sort of conspiracy website? No. This is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. You probably can only read that in this view. There you go, video guy. He's fired. Investigating viruses. You got to check this out for yourself. It's pretty bombshell indeed. Let's see what they say here again. In some cases, the cell lines that are used might be tumor-igenic. That is, they form tumors when injected into rodents. Some of these tumor-forming cell lines may contain cancer-causing viruses that are not actively reproducing, they say. Such viruses are hard to detect, they say, using standard methods. These latent or quiet viruses pose a potential threat, obviously, since they might become active under vaccine manufacturing conditions. Therefore, to ensure the safety of vaccines, our laboratory is investigating ways to detect what the fuck is going on. So right now, ladies and gentlemen, what they're saying here is that these vaccines that they're injecting into people, into people's children, massively cause cancer. And the reason that they can make these vaccines, this is a very important idea as well. But the reason that they can make vaccines is because they're manufacturing them in cells that endlessly reproduce. They get these cells from tumors because they never die. They can just keep going and going and going and going. That's the secret to the vaccine business. Now, you've heard of, basically fetal tissue and the like being used, as well as many other things, from many different types of animals. You've heard of all of the horror stories when it comes to, the manufacturing of vaccines. But you never heard this one before, that all of them are made from cancer cells, basically. Cells that continuously reproduce. Or at least there's so many of them that they're, investigating this quite thoroughly. And this is just the beginning of the horror story. Because they're saying when they inject these vaccines into rats, these things are getting cancers. It's not, kind of, sort of. It's not, speculation. This is a huge concern. It's right there on their website. They're investigating how to better detect these cancer-causing viruses, they say. Now, it's important to understand what a virus is, what DNA is, what is actually going on in the cell, because this is really where the fun begins. And let's see if we can pull up these graphics, because I think the video guy is on vacation. But again, autism is skyrocketing because of the adjuvants, but these things are causing cancer as well. And what they're finding out is that, during this process that they're making the vaccines, they've got rogue DNA that's showing up, or rogue RNA, or rogue particles, as they call them, just strands, just bits of it. It shows up, and during the manufacturing process, it gets activated. And I know we've got a graphic of what actually happens in the cell. It's amazing. You've got these micro machines working together based on what's going on in this programming language that we call DNA on these chromosomes. It's all packed up real nice. It efficiently puts out messages and regulates what's going on in the cell in real time. And this does this, even more spectacularly in an organism where everything, these organ systems are being regulated by this very same programming language. But you've got these little micro machines that come in and make proteins or copy DNA based on the genetic instructions that are in the cell. I mean, most people probably remember, something about this in biology class. But what's going on with these vaccines is that you're getting cancer-causing virus DNA that's showing up from the process, because they're grabbing, or they're using cancer cells to produce whatever they're producing, the DNA. And essentially, some of the viral cancer-causing code, is, in this DNA, and they just can't really stop it, filter it out. I mean, it's, we're talking about things the size of atoms here. Micro machines, nanotechnology. Nanotechnology, I mean, this is a work of engineering, if you ever saw it. And they certainly don't want you focusing on that, anytime soon in public schools. They make it seem like it's all random, but I mean, this is the Matrix. This is a computer program on a nano scale. But you're getting like rogue code, computer code. This is why they call them viruses, really. It's like injecting computer code into the cell, and it's changing, what these machines are doing, because it's speaking the language of life. And it's remarkable, and it's also, concerning that this is now being reported by the FDA. They're basically saying we're trying our best here to filter out, the cancer-causing DNA, but it's not as easy as it seems, and they're trying hard to develop the technology necessary. And what they're hoping to do is induce the expression of these codes, by adding certain chemicals. And that just tells you that, here they can just add things and, turn on programs and cause cancer, willy-nilly style. And it's, makes you wonder what they're really spraying, out there with their chemtrails and the like. The geoengineering. Let's see if we've got the video guy. Is the video guy there? Do we have? No, he's on vacation. Well, regardless, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of unexplained phenomenon going on, and at the core is, all of this, designer engineering at the genetic level. And I think it's, many people out there don't realize how advanced, the technology has become. It's basically to the point where they can just type in some code on a keyboard and, produce the DNA, and then just boot it up in a cell and have it express itself in some kind of contained, environment, like a horror movie, really. It's just a matter of time before somebody boots up something that's, beyond, imagination, like Pandora's box kind of situation. And I think that's one of the reasons why they have these death towers everywhere, because they're weaponized. They're all hooked up to 25 megawatts of power. They're supposed to be running on 400 watts, but I mean, these things could juice a city overnight, if not quicker, and basically, electrocute people Tesla style, while they're sleeping. People, are celebrating these death towers, but, if I were you, I'd be out there at city council and basically saying, we don't want these death towers in our neighborhoods, regardless of, the zombie apocalypse outbreak that's coming. We did want to talk about another scientific article, that talks about the contagious aspects of cancer, which is something that most people don't really think about. But I'm sure, you'll find it interesting. I'm sure. But they say around 1 in 5 cancers are caused by a virus. And this has been known since the 1960s. Cancers are not contagious, as contagious in the sense as a cold. You don't immediately get the symptoms, but they have identified at least, quite a few of them that have infectious origins. And they talk about lifelong infections that basically become worse due to severe, alcohol abuse or exposure to aflatoxins like molds and the like, which I thought was really interesting. And they definitely seem to think that these viruses are part of the problem, and some of what they produce basically trigger the cell to reproduce continuously. They just continue to initiate mitosis and disable the cell's suicide mechanism, if you will, kamikaze mechanism. And it's interesting to see how many things are built into the genetic code, how finely it regulates every process in the cell. Switches that are turned on and off, activate genes, send out programs, messages, and the like. It's pretty intense. And then you've got these little snippets of code that can just, be introduced synthetically or, through a virus, which could be weaponized, and all of a sudden start inducing all sorts of problems. And nobody would be the wiser. You think they're testing for exotic strains out there? I mean, they'll be wondering what it is for months, if not years, before they understand what truly happens. And I think this is really one of the next frontiers of what we're going to be seeing out there, because it's going to be so easy in the future to boot it up. I mean, you'll probably be able to get, a 3D printer and a program to go with it to start booting things up and probably injecting it into a cell. So the transfection aspect of it, and then the incubation, and then comes the weaponization. So you could just imagine, how many different things are out there right now just sitting in vials and secret labs, just waiting to get released. But this here, this, stunning admission by the FDA, by the U.S. government, about the origins of vaccines and their potential to cause cancer, without equivocation, really calls in mind their safety. I mean, they're rolling them out before they can truly test them, and it begins let's see how this article begins. Once again, the emergence of pathogenic virus infections like the flu and like AIDS, which have been around for decades, if not longer. But because of these just normal things going on, they've introduced virus-based vaccines that are made from cancer cells. The continual growth of the industry is fueling, production like never before. And to sustain all of that, they've got to use cells from tumors. And unfortunately, these things, basically over time will get you. It's part of the eugenics program. And they've got this way to basically induce that effect in a way that's been well studied, identified, and perfected. So there's nothing to worry about here. Everything is fine. Go back to shopping and be sure to get your vaccines. And there's a big push for the MMR right now. And they just keep talking up about the measles, and there must be something in it. There must be something in it. And look, they're going to push back, and they're always going to say it's safe and wonderful. But we've seen, unfortunately, what simple things like baby powder can do, or what antacids can do, with the Zantac and everything. And sometimes it looks really good on paper, but sometimes the production of these, pharmaceuticals and the like, are toxic. And it's like everything else, when there's money involved, people would rather go for the money than care about, public health. And it's the same way with like how they treat the environment. They just basically use it like an open sewer, and they just set up these regulations where they can dump up to a certain amount of, super toxic shit, and that's okay. But, it shouldn't really ever be okay. And, if they're going to produce, waste material like that, they should contain it like nuclear material. Why are they releasing it into the air? Why are they dumping it into the water? How many factories have you seen next to the rivers? They're everywhere. Every city. Go check out Google Maps. Every city along the river, you got the biggest, worst, nastiest factories right along the river. Why do they got to be right along the river? What are they using the river for? Why aren't they just in the industrial park like everybody else? But what they're doing overall is causing as much damage as they can so that they can just sit on a yacht somewhere and laugh at us. And I think that unfortunately, regardless of what PR departments say, regardless of what their fake book or Instagram will say, behind the scenes, they're basically victimizing people directly or indirectly through byproducts or side effects to whatever they're selling. And this has been demonstrated time and time again, and that's why it's really important to not just go willy-nilly to the gas chamber just because the television tells you so. And don't put your kids in that position just because the television tells you so. These people are just repeating what they've heard. They're just reading from a script. They have no idea what the science is actually saying. And it's just like how they teach kids, Darwin evolution in school. That has nothing to do with the science these days. You look at the law of biogenesis. Life can only come from life because it requires this elaborate programming language to function. And even the simplest form of life requires megabytes of information. You don't just, randomly assemble that. There is no chemical evolution pathway from primordial soup to the simplest form of life. They've got a big chicken and an egg problem, and it's right there in the DNA, and everybody knows it, and they don't want to talk about it. Although every once in a while you hear scientists go, oh, it's like we live in the Matrix, everything's coded, there's rules everywhere, and it's just, it looks designed. Yeah, it looks designed because it is designed. And if you want to know more about that, be sure to check out the book of Genesis, chapter 1, and that'll get you going in the right direction. And it's amazing, to be quite honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, understanding the world from the perspective of the Bible. It truly does change your understanding. And once you leave doubt behind, you'll see the matrix glitch around you. And that's the whole, idea of the dark side, is to keep you in the dark, to feed you doubt and anger and lies and sadness, so that you're just not in a position to truly appreciate what's going on out there. And it's it's beyond imagination, to say the least. And I don't think any of us out here really has a full grasp of what's going on. I think perhaps some of us have pieces to the puzzle, but it's all about thinking about what it means. Everything out here is a clue. It gives us insight into what's going on. And the more you know, the more complete you feel, because everybody wants to know where they come from and what's going on. And what we've learned here, ladies and gentlemen, is don't trust the television. These people, these politicians, it's like they live. It's a demonic they live. They've been taken over by the dark side, and whatever they're selling, you don't want to have anything to do with it. And a lot of people are kind of, are trapped to a certain extent in the system. They got to pay their bills, they got to go to work, they got to pay their taxes. But beyond that, don't support this beast system. Don't keep buying the new products that come out, making them, richer and all that stuff, because it's just building the walls around us. And it's bringing the death towers to every, neighborhood. And soon it's going to be bringing the RoboCops, the Terminators, the FEMA camps, the works. And, just pay attention to the underlying theme of the television. It's 24/7 product placement for the dark side, 24/7 product placement for Sodom and Gomorrah, for everything and anything that has to do with the 7 deadly sins. Pride, envy, you name it. If it's not anti-Christian, it's pretty much not on television. And one way or another, they're planting the seeds for the dark side. And the sooner people wake up to that, the better they'll be able to appreciate the bigger picture. And it truly is the pages of the Bible playing out before our very eyes. And for the first time in 2,000 years, people can see what this beast system is going to look like, what this mark of the beast is going to look like, what it's going to mean, as far as, what they're saying. And it's, a wonderful time to be alive. Everything is happening for a reason, and everybody has a role to play in this situation. And no matter how freaky it gets out there, the clones, the Project Bluebeams, or the real thing, no matter what happens, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what we discover along the way, nothing changes. It's the pages of the Bible playing out before our very eyes. We've been given dominion of this planet, and that, and there's a certain amount of authority that goes with that. And we can only get, taken off this planet if we doom ourselves. And that's exactly what's happening through this, Luciferian-inspired technology. Lucent Enterprises, Luciferian Enterprises, 666 Fifth Avenue. They're delivering the mechanisms for self-destruction, and, people are just consuming it, using it, abusing it, and, it's, in theory, it's stoppable. We can stop, the abomination. We can stop this termination, this assimilation, if we want to, if we get everybody involved, if we get everybody on the same page. And look, here's just another example with these vaccines, that this system is out to get you. On TV, they're like, you have to get your vaccines. And buried deep in their website is the confirmation of your worst fears. These vaccines cause cancer. They're a clear and present danger. And it's just like everything else that we're, seeing, at the grocery store, at the market these days. The consumer products are laced with eugenics. The death towers are obviously there for eugenics. And, the Georgia Guidestones basically is just sitting there laughing at you, confirming that these people want to wipe you out. So look, While they're busy covering up their crimes and planting evidence and, concocting stories about the Russians and the like, we're certainly not focusing on these people, this New World Order, this Skull and Bones, endless war franchise that is dooming us all, dooming the planet, and, basically plotting our demise. They're worshiping the devil, literally, trafficking children. Check out the Epstein case, the Podesta files. There's every reason to rise up and defend yourselves, and yet the sheeple are still out there grabbing their ankles, waiting for the deep state to penetrate. Don't be that guy, don't be that girl out there. Don't go silently into the night. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.